let's talk for a minute, first of all, about this. I really think that we need to put the United States in proper perspective. Everybody keeps talking about all the challenges that we face and all the problems that we have. But let's remember the position that we really have in this country. We're really in great shape in terms of our position around the world. We still have far and away the largest economy, for most people working and doing productive things and really exciting things in terms of the largest possible economy in the world. We're still the strongest country militarily, and that's probably because of our information technology and other high sophisticated technology which is being applied to all of that. We are still the people who are respected around the world diplomatically. There have been some blows on that, and we have some work to do on that. But the truth is that while people from time to time express disappointment in the United States, it's only because of the standard. It's only because of the high standard that people expect from the United States of America and the kind of background that we've had. Let's remember, what kind of history we've had, the history of the American Revolution, where we actually had citizen soldiers retired to a cold place like tonight, or even much colder, in Valley Forge, and then cross a frozen river in order to attack the Hessians and the British in the middle of the night at the Battle of Trenton. Americans have always stood for their country. We are people of great character. We are people dedicated absolutely to freedom of ourselves and others around the world. This is a very high standard. Not many other countries in the world, outside perhaps of the British, can really, and some of our other closer allies, can point to that kind of position that we have in the world. Our education is still the finest in the world. People come from around the country, around the world, in order to come to college here in the United States of America. And we are a nation of open discussion, above all open discussion. We overdose on public discussion. We have people 24 hours a day putting opinions out there. We've got conservative channels and liberal channels, radio, cable, regular network, newspapers, magazines. We're the most informed and discussing society in the history of the world, and largely, of course, because of the sophisticated education that we've had. So the question is, as we go forward now into the future, what kind of person are you looking for to send to the United States Senate from the state of Virginia? And in fact, not just to represent the people of Virginia, but to represent the people of the United States in the halls of the United States Senate. And I would suggest to you that there are several points that I can bring to the table that would be very useful. Number one, I believe in solving problems. I know what it is to go into government and begin to deal with problem type of issues. I remember when I was the Attorney General, for example, I went into that office, and the office was pretty dispirited. It had been highly politicized. The goal there was, in my view, was to make it a very sophisticated law office on behalf of the people of Virginia. And I went in and I did that. And I think that I restored that kind of professionalism to that office in a very meaningful way. I remember that when I was the Attorney General, there was a phenomenon going on across the United States that many of y'all may recall. And that was that we were seeing a lot of church burning of African American churches that was going on all across the South. And for a period of time there, over a number of weeks or months, you would turn on the television, and once again this information society was talking about churches being burned in Alabama or in Mississippi and other places like that, Georgia and so on, and even up into the Atlantic states. I wanted to address that issue, and I knew that as an elected Attorney General of a leading state like Virginia, I was in a position to do it. So I asked all my fellow Attorney Generals from across the South, Republicans and Democrats, to come in to Howard University in Washington, and we made a strong statement that that kind of conduct was not just illegal, but it would be vigorously pursued and not tolerated. And shortly thereafter, the church burning stopped. So it's a matter of problem solving. There was a challenge when I became the governor that people were having to pay taxes on their automobiles on a constant basis. How many people here own a car? Well, in those days, you had to pay a tax just for owning the car, year after year after year. And people just hated it. And so I made a point when I ran for governor of saying we're going to eliminate that tax. We're going to do everything we can do to get rid of that tax. And I'm proud to say, over the 4 years when I was governor, we got rid of 70% of that tax. And when you get that bill today, you look at it, it'll show 70% off. And you know what? The other 30% ought to be off too. And if we had the kind of leadership that was necessary to do it, we would have long ago gotten rid of that tax and gone to a genuine tax reform system that would have helped localities and helped people. But we did it 70% off, and it's been our problem solving. Secondly, I think you have to have integrity if you're going to serve in office. I've always believed that if you're going to run for office and you tell people you're going to do something, you ought to mean it. It ought not to be just something where you run for office, you just say something and see whether you can put something over on the voter. Once you have made a commitment that you're going to do something, you ought to try to do it, if you can possibly do it. And I think the reason why people have become so discouraged about public life and politics today is because too many politicians say they're going to want to do one thing, and then they promptly do another when they get into office, and it makes people very cynical. And I think it's wrong. And I think you have to stand by your principles and your integrity. And third of all, you have to have principles, some sort of pole star, a sense of the proper role of government and the proper role of the individual and the citizen within the nation and within the country and the relationship between them. And as a conservative Republican, I believe absolutely in the greatest possible benefit to regular people within society, the empowerment of people, the freedom of people. They are not just subject to being serfs of the government. They are, in fact, people who own the government and are entitled to live within a society in that way. These are the fundamental principles that Americans have always believed in.